Hi, it's Fajr Freerad. I'm here at Forest of Dean Bike Park, and I'm speaking with Allen Millyard, and we're going to talk to him about his amazing suspension system. Um, Alan's been developing rear shocks, frames, and now a fork insert, and we're really excited to be out here testing them out and learning all about them. Alan, take it away.
Well, what do you want to know?
Well, I want to know what got you into this.
Stephen was 15. He was wanting to start racing mountain bikes. We bought an orange 222, which is a great bike, but he was always smashing derailleurs and breaking shock springs and blowing dampers and all sorts of issues because he got quite good at it. And then Stephen said, I need a new bike for next year. And of course, it's £5,000. I couldn't afford that. So he said, we'll have to make a bike. And Stephen's face was sort of, yeah, okay. So I said, go off and make me a list of what you want. So he made me a list of everything he wanted on a bike, and we tried to fulfill that wish.
And so that led you to developing a new shock design.
Yeah, the shock came along with the bike, but this one we're working on now is a totally different rendition of the original shock we used.
So how is it different from a conventional Fox or RockShox suspension system?
It uses a gas spring, basically, with gas and oil and an orifice. It's like an oleo damper from the 1930s aeroplanes. So you just push oil through a hole. And that's all there is. There's no valves, there's no shims, no washers, no bypass valves, no top-out valves, nothing. Just a hole in a piece of metal with oil on one side and gas on the other side.
And so are you able to adjust the size of that orifice for different riders?
Well, you could do in conception, I guess, but we found we don't need to do that, do we?
Once we've kind of worked out what size to have, you don't need to change it. It adjusts depending on the impact you see. So if you hit it hard, obviously it's got to slow that oil down. So once you get it to the right point, you won't need to change it. Unless you can change the thickness of the oil you see. So I play around with sort of 2.5 weight, 5 weight mixtures of the two to get the right oil setting. And then that's the same as adjusting the damping size.
And so I should introduce this person. This is Stephen Millyard. And Stephen, you've been the test pilot for all of these different iterations of shocks and fork inserts. What have you learned about the suspension setup in testing all these different things?
A lot. I mean, I knew nothing about it to start with. And now, I mean, I've stripped it all down, helped build it and all that sort of stuff. So I've got a fairly good understanding, enough to be able to feed back sort of the stuff that's going wrong or that's going right that we need to work on. It's pretty simple. That's the thing. There isn't that much to get your head around once you know how it works.
So the fork insert, does it work with the same mechanism with the orifice and the oil and gas charge as the rear shock?
Yeah, it's exactly the same. The compression ratio is slightly different because you haven't got I think they run about 3-to-1 leverage ratio on a normal rear end. Obviously the front's 1-to-1, so we run a slightly different compression ratio on the front, but apart from that, it's exactly the same.
And is the fork insert, is it specific to a particular brand or model of fork? Or are you developing ones for different forks?
So the fork insert I've got in there came out of one brand. We just had to modify the thread on the top to be able to screw it into the Foxes. But it'll work in any fork. It's just they run different threads at the top and the bottom, slightly different lengths, I suppose.
Alan, I've looked on the interwebs and I see that you're quite active in moto and MotoGP development, that type of thing. Why are you playing around with bikes?
It's just something fun to do, isn't it? It's something different. I wouldn't say I was really playing around with bikes. I think Stephen is more than I am. I just make happen what he wants made. And it's having a vision. Sometimes I just see something that everyone's not seen and just think, why do we do it like this? Why do we have to do it like that? Why does everybody else do it like this? So that's what we've done when we made the system.
What's the hardest thing you've built so far?
Probably, all my bikes are different. Like the Dodge Viper engine bike I made with a Dodge Super 8-litre V10, the engine weighs 900 pounds. So making that into a road legal motorcycle that you can ride safely on the road was really hard. But then making my Velocet V-twin was really difficult, so I had to make it look original 1930s, so you can't tell. And these mountain bikes, putting Stephen on is 15 years old and throwing him down Fort William on a bike that I'd made in a garage. You know, so you have to overthink. But I like doing stuff that people perceive as not being able to be done. I've done quite a few things in my life where I've done something that people say can't be done. And it gives me the sort of the impetus to make it work, you know.
Any desire to learn CNC stuff?
I've already done CNC stuff. That's what I did most of my life.
Oh.
And I find it so boring. It's just repetitive boringness. I like to be able to feel the handles on a lathe and turn them and make things from a vision in my mind. So I am the CNC basically. No disrespect to those people that do it. It's very clever, and they are talented people that program computers to move machines. But that's what it is in the day. It's just a computer saying what you can do and what you can't do. And quite often it actually limits what you can do in free thought, because you've got to go through a post-processor and you've got to go through software programs, and they might stop you from doing something, whereas I'll just do it. I didn't even do a drawing for this. I just got a big lump of metal, cut it in half with a hacksaw, big block of aluminium, put it in my lathe and just started freehand turning. And I rang Steve and I said, it looks really cool with Dalek fins. He said, carry on, that's amazing. Sent him a half-finished picture. And that's what we did. And it fills in the centre, not at the top. So the gas doesn't go in at the top, but like every other shock it fills, this goes in the middle. You know, and we needed a chrome shaft. So don't make a chrome shaft. Find an old Land Rover shop, saw that out, and we used the piston out of the old Land Rover shop and just machined it down, put new grooves in it, and tried it, didn't we? And it worked literally as you've ridden it today. Is how it worked the first time. Out of the box, first time, wasn't it? And all we had is a few problems with leaks, which is not an issue with the design of the process, the actual concept. It's actually just a seal technology. I'm not an expert on seal technology.
So to build the second one, did you start over, or?
Exactly. They were both very slightly different in size, so I didn't measure them. All it's the same between them is the bore diameter and the stroke, because I remember what that was. So but the rest of it is freehand machine. All the thread, I don't measure threads. I make one thread fit the other thread, and just machine it with a single point cutting tool. But you can do it quickly. It took me 3 hours to make that shop finished, from scratch to finished.
Was the fork a harder project?
It wasn't actually. You just see, basically just stretch everything. So you make everything smaller in diameter, make it longer. But we were struggling initially, we thought, with piston speed. But we had some telemetry put on the bike from Motion Instruments in America. And we know exactly what our speed is now. So, because we know that now, we can get the seals for that speed. Whereas in the past, we didn't know what the speed was. We guessed, and we guessed wrong, didn't we?
Yeah, I mean, our seals are 0.5 metre a second, which we thought that's quite fast. Put the telemetry on the shock and it moves at 4. So we're 8 times faster than the seal's rated to.
So what are your plans for the shock and the fork insert? Is this a hobby project? Or are you planning on manufacturing these for other riders to use?
Well, initially it's just for Stephen, really. But I didn't see any reason why it couldn't be made, because it's very simple to do. If someone wanted to help us do it, I'm sure it could be made.
Looking for a partner?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm looking for a partner. I'm looking for someone to sort of work with Stephen to just make it if they want to. There's nothing patentable about it. It's just all existent. It's all on the internet, all pre-1950, most of it. In fact, parts of it are made from an old Land Rover. So it's if someone wants to, they can.
So what kind of PSI are we talking about in there?
It's bar. Yeah, barometric pressure. So we run about, what do you run in the back?
26 in the back, 8 in the front. For me, depends on sort of, I've noticed with a few different riding styles, you might run slightly different depending on how you weight the front or the back, and also, obviously, it's a lighter rider or a heavier rider. But generally, I mean, we ran 26 on the downhill bike, made a new shock, slightly different design, different, obviously, compression ratio on the bike and everything else, and we still run 26.
So I would imagine that the wall thickness on the air chamber, or the gas chamber, has got to be heavier than what you'd find on a conventional shock if you're running the higher pressures.
Yeah, because it ramps right up. And also I've over-engineered it as well to make it stronger than it really needs to be, because I've got Stephen's life on it.
And no drawings, no stress analysis, nothing like that. It's just sort of, yeah, that'd be thick enough.
Is it heavy?
It's heavier than a conventional air shock, but it's about the same as a coil spring shock. But I'm not hung up with weight. I don't get hung up with weight because you're heavier than me. Stephen's heavier than me. People put on £1 having a beef burger, then they spend £50 on a titanium bolt to save a bit of weight. You shouldn't get hung up too much on weight, I don't believe.
It's not an air shock replacement, it's a coil shock replacement. That's what you've got to think. So in terms of air shocks, it's potentially heavier. But in terms of coil shocks, I mean, I think that weighs about 740 grams, all in with the oil and gas and everything. So it's heavier than an air shock, but you're not looking at trying to get air shock performance, you're trying to get better than coil shock performance.
So it seems like its application is probably more gravity oriented. Probably not going to have a lockout on it. It's going to be a wide open, high speed kind of shock for chunder. How does it handle on jumps and stuff?
Jumps is great. I really like jumps. I mean, the biggest thing I've noticed is because because it's so adaptive and the wheel will move out the way fast, you can really case a jump and you don't even notice, which is great when you're getting it wrong.
Yep.
And also, I mean, I've landed that to flat quite a few times, and same again, it just eats it and it doesn't kick you back. So normally, if you come in hot, a lot of people, they'll case, fully compress and then kick them off. That, I've got slow-mos of me coming in on a lander, I'll hit it, the back end will move completely out of the way and then just put itself back down on the other side and you just roll out and hit the next jump.
So I noticed on the fork that even though I got almost all full travel on it, no bottom out feel at all. Why is that?
It's effectively infinitely progressive. So it's designed in a way that you'll get 75% of the travel most of the time, which means any root, rock, the wheel just moves out of the way. There's effectively no damp in there, so it just flicks the wheel out of the way, puts it straight back down the other side, tyre doesn't leave the ground. But that top end, you're looking at compressing all of that gas into effectively nothing, which is impossible. So the spring rate just ramps right up at the end, and it's pretty much impossible to bottom them out.
It sounds like it could probably be produced fairly affordably if it's not a patentable thing and you're using pretty simple oil orifice systems for the damping. Is that your impression?
You can make very cheaply if you wanted to do it. Very cheap.
It's about 6 parts.
Have you made them with different stroke lengths?
You can just put a nylon spacer in them if necessary, change the stroke length. But no, we've just made these ones for Stephen's bikes and Sam's bikes and the downhill bikes. That's all we've made, mainly for us to use, really. We like to sort of just go out and show people what you can do in shed.
So everybody wants to know, why not that downhill bike? What's happened with that, and why aren't you all working on that one?
Doing other things. That's in the past. It's gone, isn't it? It's history. In fact, it's 15 years ago we made that. And when we made it, it was 10 years advance of anything that was made at the time, apparently, according to the Dirt Magazine review. So it just sits in the shed, but isn't it?
And do you all have plans to add more features to the shock? Is there a next generation in the works?
It doesn't. It's there already, isn't it? It doesn't. What is there to change?
Well, I guess Stephen was saying something about wanting to work on the finishes and the shafts and the seals and those types of issues a little bit more.
Problem is, I make this at home on an old 50-year-old lathe by hand with no drawings or measuring equipment. I just literally make it from a vision to a finished item. We get it show finished, anodized, not hard anodized, and it's not ground on the bores and diameters. So, and the seals are just what you get off of eBay. So if it had the right seals in it and ground surfaces, it'd be absolutely perfect. But I'm not prepared to take it to that distance to get that done. Because one, it costs a lot of money. I've got other things to do. I've made a prototype that works really well for my 2 boys, and we'll have to see how it goes.
Is the service interval any different than a regular shock?
If it was machined, with the right finishes and the correct seals and everything, yeah, once a year probably, just to see if everything was okay. At the moment, I do a fair amount on it, but that's because it's effectively a concept more than a prototype. It's it's roughed out in the garage with material that we've got, with seals that we can find to see if it'll work, which it does. But then you get such high pressures with any imperfections in the surface, it's just going to blow through a small amount at a time. So over a period of riding, it will it maybe drop a bit of pressure, lose a bit of oil, but that's expected with a handmade prototype. So
Alan, what's on the lathe right now? What are you working on, bike or moto-wise?
My Kawasaki's making 6-cylinder Kawasaki's from Z1s. So it's very interesting. Z1's the most iconic classic motorcycle ever made in 1972. It's a 4-cylinder. You call them a Z1, don't you, in America?
Right.
But I've made one into a 6-cylinder double overhead cam. I'm just making a second one.
Is that for your own use, or you do that for somebody else?
The first one's for me, but the other one, I've got several people wanting to buy it, so I will be selling that one. So it finances the next project.
All right, I want to thank you all for tuning in and this great chat with Alan and Stephen. And if you want more information about what Alan's up to, you can go to
my YouTube channel, Allen Millyard, and Instagram.
All right. Stephen, you got something going on?
Yeah, I just use my Instagram, which is Stephen Millyard.
Thanks, and follow singletrackworld.com for more great information about mountain biking in the UK.